My background is from the National Health Service. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and I worked there for over 20 years. By freak chance, one of my students at Sheffield University, who was a medical student, took a job with British Cycling. I'm undergraduate dean at Sheffield Medical School, and he gave me a call and said, can you help me out with a cyclist? And that was back in 2001. I went in and obliged and did it as a favour, and the work that I did with the cyclist resulted in him doing very, very well in a major competition, which alerted Dave Brailsford, the head of cycling, to ask what I was doing and could it apply to other cyclists. When I started looking at the human mind, I think there were a number of light bulb moments that made me start thinking of a new way of looking at it. For the first point was in clinical medicine, you would see people acting in a way that they'd actually disagreed with. And you wondered why they were doing that if we make the assumption that the human brain is under our control. There has to be another reason why they're doing this, apart from just being addicted to, say, alcohol or drugs, but even at a lower level, people who had problems with eating or containing themselves emotionally in any way. And so I didn't feel these people were necessarily ill. It seemed like part of their brain was sabotaging their well-being and was actually hijacking them and making them do things they didn't want to do. I also coupled that with ideas in seeing something like Pick's dementia, where you see selected parts of the brain degenerating, and yet the personality is still there, but it alters significantly, and the person has impaired judgment and behaviours that really aren't traditionally what I'd expect to see them do. So I started putting this together, coupled with work in the neurosciences, where we could see from functional scanners of the brain and PET scans that when we think emotionally, there are different parts of our brain lighting up and taking the blood supply. And these parts are not under our control. We have to try and manage them, but they can override us and we get emotional hijack. When we're actually calm and collected, then a different part of the brain starts to lead and takes the blood supply. And this then gives us what appears to be conscious awareness of decisions and actions. So what we ended up with is two parts of the brain that appeared to be in conflict with each other. And that made me think, well, there must be more to it than just a single brain operating under our control. That didn't make sense to what I was experiencing and the science behind it. What I did then was to draw up a model. So it's not a hypothesis or scientific fact. It's based on neuroscience and my experience and recent research, particularly in the States, where we can see there is a thinking, analysing part of our brain that we're not aware of. And often it comes up with conclusions that we are still not aware of consciously, and then it causes us to act on these. So you can see that effectively what you've got are two personalities and two acting systems. And most people, when I started delivering this to them, would recognise this. And as a fun model, I told them about the chimp and said, well, this is like having an inner chimp. And it stuck, and people said, I can relate to this. So people would say that I want to be calm, collected with perspective, but actually I act really inappropriately. I'll lose perspective. I'm catastrophic in my thinking. This isn't me, this is me being hijacked. And so the concept of the inner chimp became parlance among the people I worked with, and the staff took it on, and people found it very beneficial because you then had a model to use to work with your own emotions and thinking to get the best out of yourself. But the crucial aspect was that the chimp is not actually under our control. We have to manage it, and it is a thinking, independent system from us. And it's recognising that. If you want to then say, well, how do you manage the chimp? It gets more complicated because this part of the brain is dominant to us as human beings. So I give the word human to the bits of the brain that act as a team, that act on our behalf with our agenda and our wishes. The bit that acts with its own agenda, which is about dominance, territory, drives, is the chimp. And it thinks with a very different system and different morals as well. So what I did is said to people, if you look at the chimp, how can we manage this? And basically there are three ways to do that. One is to exercise the chimp, which this means is get it off your chest. Don't contain emotion, let it out, but let it out safely. So I was saying to people, don't exercise your chimp in a supermarket, take it to a locked compound. And by that I mean don't exercise your emotions and thoughts to people who can't receive these or will react to them. You go to someone in the right place, the right time, and that gets it off your chest and helps you to reflect. Because scientifically, as we speak from our chimp brain, the human brain is listening. So often when we're finished exercising the chimp, the human will say, actually, that's crazy. I don't agree with that anyway. So we started employing this certainly within cycling, and we found it very productive within teams and individuals. So that's one way. The second way is to box the chimp, and this is really taking ideas from cognitive behavioural therapy, because part of the brain, which I call the computer, nudges the chimp. And so we looked at belief systems, and if you box the chimp, it's giving values or systems or truths that ring true to you and maybe unique to you, that settle your emotions down and stabilise you. And the final way was to give the chimp a banana. And basically that was to reward yourself, give yourself some kind of encouragement or a distraction. So there were two types of banana. So it became a fun model, and it was always meant to be that, but it actually took on quite serious consequences. If you apply this model and you look at yourself, I think the first thing to get the best out of other people is to get yourself in a good place. So I think people need to be kind to themselves. There are so many people who don't understand what's happening in their mind and then take responsibility for chimp thoughts and actions. We're not responsible for the nature of the chimp, but you're responsible for managing the nature. So that is a subtle but very powerful point. It takes away all the guilt that a lot of people suffer with, and also this self-deprecation or beating up of self is really unhelpful, and we know that. And if we can recognise that actually we don't always agree with what the chimp does for us or acts or says, then we can start learning to recognise this and manage it. So that's a crucial point, to start with yourself, be good to yourself, get yourself in a good quality place so you're happy. That in itself will help you manage other people. But then accepting other people have chimps too. And if you take them at face value and then they say something emotional, you probably think this person's going to regret this. If you start to recognise that and don't react to it, but actually help and manage that, then you can help them with their own emotions and manage their own chimp. So again, it's this idea of not being judgmental with people, but recognising what's the person, the human in them, and what's the chimp, and then not reacting to the chimp and then pointing a finger. It's so unhelpful. So it's about being a little bit more caring towards ourselves and others, and then recognising which part of the brain is actually speaking and whether they're under control of that or whether it needs a bit more management.